This is Johnny Wrestling, Johnny Gargano, and you are listening to the Bob Culture Podcast.
Hello, I'd like to welcome you to paradise, where everyone is riding on a satellite, sending signals, praying for miracles. We should have seen this coming. Hear me out, because I'm only gonna say this one more time. Hear me out, and open your eyes and take a look at all the signs. You think I'm crazy, but I'm not the only one. Call me crazy. I've been thinking maybe we are not alone. Call me crazy. I've been thinking lately it's been the same way all along.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome into a very special One Wing Dragon episode of the BCP Shameless Promo. Got to shout out our sponsors, Funkenstein Wrestling Superstore, located at the English Town Flea Market in New Jersey, Saturdays and Sundays. They're open from 8 to 3 p.m. You got Ninja Turtles, Ghostbusters, a ton of wrestling stuff, horror stuff, vintage video games. Check them out on their eBay store or FunkensteinWrestlingSuperstore.com. Dan and Heather, thank you so much on a personal note for always sponsoring the show, taking care of us. And guys, now that the bills are paid, please welcome to the show, making his debut on the BCP ahead of his appearance at Pro Wrestling Magic presents My Own Worst Enemy. That's going to be this Saturday, January 28th. It's early. You guys aren't going to miss the Rumble. Don't worry. Get your tickets now. It's going to be at the Mecca of professional wrestling here in New Jersey, 106 Bergen Ave, Ridgefield Park, New Jersey. Doors are at 3, bell time at 4. Please welcome to the show ahead of his match against Steve Off for the Dark Arts Championship, the One Wing Dragon himself, Mr. Chris Ryan. Chris, welcome in, man. Thanks for a few minutes. How are you, bro?
It's good, man. How's it been?
It's good, dude. It's been good. Like I was telling you off air, really busy between real work and wrestling and being a boyfriend and just, putting in the miles, putting in the work, creative endeavors, man. It's been crazy. But for you, man, I am seeing you riding this wave right now. I've seen you kind of start at the bottom at Pro Wrestling Magic and slowly climbing that ladder. Now you have a huge title opportunity in front of you, taking on, let's be real, the head honcho, the head guy, one of the top guys at Pro Wrestling Magic, Steve Off, man. I mean, how you feeling going into this one? This is a big opportunity. You know how much that Dark Arts Championship means to him.
Yeah, no, definitely. I watched last month the hell that him and Alex Raymond were putting themselves through. Main event of the show, 3 stages of hell. Just yeah, and honestly, like, just knowing I've been here 3 years now in this promotion at least, and this is my first shot at a singles title under this promotion. So, like you said, just like working from the bottom, like I came in here just like as a last minute substitute for someone else, and then I've just been like either on the pre-shows or just battle royals and just Monday morning magic tapings, and yeah, just really putting everything in the hindsight. It just feels good knowing that I took a chance on myself, that this promotion took a chance on me, and how well it's been paying off. Just feels good. Like that's the most you can ask for in this industry.
Yeah, it's such a crazy business, and shout out to you because you worked hard to get to this spot against Steve. And if you guys are watching the podcast or listening, everyone's like, "Oh, I want to get into Magic." Rob, can you say something? Like Steve literally tells you guys, if you go help set up, if you help tear down, he keeps an eye on you guys. If you guys put in the work, show up, set up the ring. You never know, there'll be a spot for you. Steve does a great job with that. I can't stress that enough. And Chris, we have seen you literally just rise to this position right now. But I got to ask again, man, Steve Off, you mentioned that hell that he went through with Alex Ryman. We saw at the last show. Heck of a match. I'm sure he's still a little banged up for this one, but what would it mean for you to walk out of there with a Pro Wrestling Magic Dark Arts Championship?
Well, I've been saying this all over social media, and I said this when I was in Disney World. I said that when I was doing this little pointing at etc. gimmick. I'm going for a doubleheader, man. I'm going for a Brock Lesnar 2003 performance. I plan on winning both. I plan on walking out with a title. I plan on winning that Battle Royal. I plan in April to walk out as a dual champion. I'm going for that world championship, man. I want it all. None's gonna stop me. I've come this far. I ain't wasting that. I didn't beat Nick Pierce for nothing. I'm going straight to the top. I'm rolling this kingdom.
Yeah, man. I love the confidence, man. Obviously, tall task ahead of you. You obviously mentioned that Chad Adams Memorial Battle Royal where the winner does get a title shot, man. And that would be so cool. Pulling, double duty, man. How do you prepare for something like that? I think mentally and emotionally, you seem to be, and I'm not gonna lie, I was a little concerned, man. You kind of snapped at a couple shows, man. I think you kind of had that laugh when you were walking to the back. I was concerned about you, bro. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But where are you mentally, emotionally, and physically going into this Saturday? Because you have not one but two matches, and I see you kind of playing the mind games. You mentioned the pointing that Steve does from one of his favorite places in the world, Disney, man. I mean, that is some mind games. Is that kind of, I don't want to give away too much of your strategy, but is that kind of like your plan going into this one? How are you preparing?
Well, if anybody's been following me on Instagram and Twitter, I've been trying to get in at least one workout every day for the entire month. That I'm currently going, is it 25 days straight now.
Wow.
Just trying to keep my physical condition going. And I've got two matches. One's for a title, one's a battle royal, and I could potentially be in that ring for an hour. So got to keep my cardio up. Got back from the gym this morning or afternoon. I was doing legs. I was running the treadmill. I was just pushing myself, man. I'm doing 52 cardio every 10 days, which is very brutal, not going to lie. But, just like this is something that my trainer, Logan Black, has definitely drilled into me. He's always been very laser focused on someone's in-ring cardio. That's the number one thing you can do. You can be in shape, but being in a wrestling ring, that's unlike anything else. You really got to keep it going. You really got to get the momentum going. So yeah, I ain't gonna say too much. I've been pulling Steve off strings. I've been very hell-bent on being this battle world for 3 years now. Let me point this out. 3 years ago, didn't make the cut. 2 years ago, obvious reasons we couldn't do the battle royal, and then last year didn't make the cut again. You don't know what that does to someone. It just makes you more and more determined to get there, regardless of what's being thrown at you, regardless of how many people just are laughing at you. Keep it cool. You just got to get in the right mindset, man. You just got to keep telling yourself, I got this. And I do got this.
Wow, I appreciate the confidence, and I'm so glad to see how far you've come, Chris. But I got to say this one, man, and maybe now's not the best time to ask, man. But I saw you getting a little heated over there, and I've just seen you in past matches. Just you kind of go to another place, you take things to the next level, man. I feel like there's another side of you, man. I don't want to awaken that by any means right now, but I mean, are you okay? I'm worried about you sometimes, man. You've walked out of there was kind of this cackle where I've interviewed you and you walk away laughing. You've done some pretty intense things to Nick Pierce, and now you're playing the mind games. And even just now, man, is everything okay?
Let me just say it like this. When you go through disappointment after disappointment, turmoil after turmoil, shortcoming after shortcoming, you always get these opportunities. You get so freaking close to it, and then it just slips away from you. You pour your heart and your soul into the one thing that you love most, and you don't get recognized for it. You just get met by a bunch of people cackling at you. Once in a while, you just come to a realization. If you can't laugh at yourself, then what joy is there in just going on? What joy is there in just continuing what you do? So I just realized that if you start laughing at yourself, you don't give anybody else anything to laugh at. You're in on the joke. Still, there's really no joke. And yeah, the last year I've had to come to that realization, having been put in the ring against the Undertaker, being put into 6-person matches, having teammates walk out on you, having been suspended because somebody else, a referee of all people, did you wrong, and they're not getting punished for it. Yeah, just you really just gotta realize when you're pushed to the corner, when your back's against the wall, you gotta push them back, or else you're just gonna get suffocated. And that's what I did. That's why I ended up doing the Nick Pierce. I came out of suspension early. I risked getting suspended again and missing out on this Battle Royal again. But it paid off. Because I'm a risk taker. And I'm going to ensure that I'm the one who gets the last laugh in the end.
Well, thank you, Mr. Ryan, for sharing that. I'm glad you're okay. I can obviously, as someone who can definitely laugh at himself. I somewhat understand where you're coming from, and I hope your mind is right going into this one. You certainly have many tall tasks ahead of you on January 28th, this Saturday at Pro Wrestling Magic. I did want to ask you this one. You mentioned this a little bit. You had a little bit of a feud there with Nick Pierce. You talked about that, where you did kind of take it to some extreme levels. And I mean, let's be real. You were attacking him with that dumbbell, man. And I saw it firsthand backstage. I saw it firsthand filming in the ring. I was just very close, man. And I hope Mr. Pierce is okay, man. What brought you to that level, to that point where you had to hit him with that dumbbell?
I've shared this story before, and my issue with Nick Pierce goes all the way back to September of 2021. Now, before I go into that, I need to put this up. I remember when Nick Pierce first stepped into the T2T Wrestling Academy in Brooklyn, and I saw the passion, the determination that this young kid had. I saw how hard they were willing to get themselves over, so much to a point that they became a referee. They were willing to do any job they had to get the spotlight on them. And with that, unfortunately, it comes a very personal test of trust. So, back in September 2021, I was in the ring with Steve Pena. I was hot. I was hotter than I had ever been at that point. I was being put up there against somebody who's definitely seen things. This is a man who's competing on AEW. This is a man who's been a standout in Battle Club Pro. He's been all over the place. Steve Pena, I could say, in all honesty, one of the best I've ever been in the ring with. I respect the hell out of the guy. And he gave me a hell of a fight. But at the end of that fight, I never gave up. The official ruling will be Chris Ryan submitted. But the reality, if you go back and you watch that match, I never submitted. What happened is Nick Pierce called for that gong when I was being unresponsive, when I did not give him any answer as to whether or not I give up. He straight up called for the gong. And in turn, he ruined my momentum. He forced me back down the cart. He forced me back into mediocrity, which I worked so hard to get out of. And then he decided he wanted to become a full-time competitor. And he got into my business again. So I had no other choice. They left me with no other choice. I had to teach him a thing or two about what happens when you disrespect somebody who has put so much on you, who has put so much faith in you that you can make it in this business. And he decided, out of the cost of my trust, to throw that away so that he can get that opportunity, so that he can get that spotlight at my expense. Do you think I was going to do that? Do you think I was just going to let Nick Pierce, somebody who's been in this way less longer than I have, a lot less years than I have, that he was just going to take that away from me? No, I wasn't going to let that happen. What happened is they forced me to take some serious drastic measures. I had to assault them in the gym. I had to hit them with the dumbbell backstage. And I had to hit them with a dumbbell so that I could finally teach them a thing or two about how it felt to be in my position, to be suspended from one of the promotions that put so much on me. I had to do what I had to get in that Battle Royal, and I had to teach them a thing or two about discipline, about humility. I didn't want to do it, but they let me no other choice. And I'm hoping that out of this bad blood, that out of this whole predicament, that it'll teach them a thing or two about discipline. And in turn, the both of us can move on, that we can go on our own separate paths, and we can achieve good things by ourselves.
Wow. Well, certainly a lot of passion there, Mr. Ryan, and thank you again for for opening up and telling us that. But maybe we should switch gears here. I see you getting fired up, and we'll certainly see the intensity in the ring, not once but twice at Pro Wrestling Magic. My own worst of you guys, get your tickets now. Sorry, I'm a little shook right now, but I did want to ask you this, man. Switching gears, let's talk about something maybe a little bit more positive. Let's talk about you mentioned training. You mentioned Logan Black, I believe. I believe you said it was T2 Academy in Brooklyn. Was that you, or where did you train? Where did you come up?
Well, TCT has been like ever since like the post, or I shouldn't say post, like around the time when the pandemic was just starting to slow down. I mean, like it's not entirely gone. It's never going to be gone. We're still in this, but T2T is somewhere I ended up because actually I should really share the story. The way I got connected was because before all this, I was in Staten Island and I was doing Jose Salvador. I was doing a luchador gimmick, basically just a really bad imitation of El Generico. And when I became Chris Ryan in Pro Wrestling Magic, I didn't really have a training facility at that time. I was just going from place to place. One of them was in Pennsylvania at the dojo. So yeah, like just throughout the whole pandemic, I was just pretty much I didn't have a full-time place, and I was just like trying to keep myself over on social media, and I was pretty much just like trying to get across the whole Jose Salvador thing. I'm trying to like blur the lines between reality and fiction, and one day I just tweeted out a year after I had my final match in Staten Island as Jose. I pretty much just took to Twitter and I reshared this post, pretty much just saying gracias on Jose's like Twitter account, which is it's probably still up. I don't log into that anymore. It's probably just forgotten history. But I did that, and then I got connected to Tom Fraser, who hit me up in my messages. I guess he saw that, and he said, "Dude, congratulations on your retirement or whatever." So he actually thought I was retired for real, which is just hilarious. And I said, "No, dude, this is kayfabe. This isn't real." And that happened. And then he mentioned technique to technique training in Brooklyn. And he mentioned that Logan was there. Logan, who has been such a pivotal part of my entire career. He was there around the time I got started. He's always been like, I always consider him like my main coach, my main source of just getting myself out there. He's the guy who's always pushing myself. And around the time MV Young was still there, Brother Greatness was still there, and eventually we got Willow in on there before she got signed to AEW. So it was just, we had some really good connections. But what just sold me on that was just Logan, because now I had another chance to work with the guy that's really just put me on the map, who's really just been in my corner since day one. And T2T's just been my prominent home resident since then. I should apologize. It's raining outside. The lights just going nuts. But yeah, it's just like a great, beautiful thing about coming full circle. It was just a happy little accident. Just this is the beautiful thing about social media, is that like the line between reality and fiction can really trick some people. And I had to trick Tom in order to get like connected to that. So I just always laugh about that. And yeah, just like that was just a really great thing. And T2T's just been my home ever since then, and I'm forever grateful for that.
That's awesome, and thank you for sharing that story. As I see the lights kind of flickering, I don't know if there's any sort of supernatural element to the one-winged dragon. We'll talk about that in a little bit, man. I want to talk about that. We see the gear. I love the gear, man. We say, who is Chris Ryan, the one-winged dragon? Can you tell us a little bit about how that persona came about, man? I think it's great.
So the one-winged dragon has very interesting background to it. So I've always wanted to have some sort of nickname calling myself a dragon. I always wanted to have something like that. And, I always had these kind of really dumb names. I always thinking like, oh, I could call myself the New York Dragon. I could call myself the Staten Island Dragon, the Full Metal Dragon, because I love Full Metal Alchemist. And I just thought, no. So I always wanted to think of something like that, but then the pandemic happened, and I can't go anywhere, can't wrestle, so just had to find something to occupy my time. And fortunately, around this time, the remake of Final Fantasy VII came out on the PlayStation 4. So I just got that game. Didn't have anything better to do, so I just played that.
I did
Just
the same
always-
thing during the lockdown, man. I one of my favorite games. I love your Era shirt, but I did the same thing. I played that remake. Sorry to interrupt, but big pop for Final Fantasy
That's
VII.
fine. Yeah, no, fair enough. So you can probably guess where it's going. So just play that game, and here's the thing: I've always had a fascination with Final Fantasy VII. Cloud's always been one of my mains in Super Smash Brothers up until that point, and I knew what this game was. I knew who some of these characters were. I knew Cloud. I knew Tifa. I knew Aerith. I knew Sephiroth. But I never really took the time to actually like get into any of this. But then, like, when the remake was coming out, I decided I'm going to give this a chance. I want to see what this is like. And I just played that around the time everything went into lockdown, and I immediately just fell in love with it. I immediately fell in love with this series and all these characters, and it made me want to discover more about it. I went back and I played the original. I read the novel On the Way to a Smile. I just played Crisis Core when that got re-released, and that's also an amazing game. And I just immediately felt a connection with these characters, and I finally got my source of inspiration. I played these games, and I saw Sephiroth, the one-winged angel, and it just hit me. One-winged dragon. And I never went back on that. And as far as the meaning of the name is, at first it would just sound like a cool nickname to me, but then I really like thought about it, and I could have weight behind it. And what I've always been going with is I've always felt like I've been shorter than most wrestlers. I always felt like I was smaller. I'm usually just 150 pounds or less. So I always feel like I'm not like the status quo of what most wrestlers are like. And that just made me feel like I'm always at a disadvantage. But I've just always been telling myself since I was a kid, I don't care about the disadvantage. I don't care how big I am. I don't care how small I am. I'm going to fight my heart out so I could show I'm as capable as any other wrestler. And what I've been running with the angle is even a dragon with one wing, they could still breathe fire just as hot as any other dragon. So what just became just a cool nickname, that's been something that's always defined me.
It sounds like it was meant to be because you had the dragon name locked in. You see Sephiroth, man, that's so cool. Before we came on, I popped for the Aries shirt. I think you said you got the sword around your neck, man. That is so awesome, man. I popped big for that. I got to ask you, I enjoyed the remake, but it's only half a game. It's not the whole game. Have you played the original all the way through? Which is one of my favorite games of all time.
I did play the original all the way through just last year. There's obviously some things about it that are dated. Some of the dialogue's a little dated.
For sure.
And some of the graphics are not as mind-blowing as they were in 1997. We've kind of been spoiled by that. But my God, the gameplay, the story, the characters, aside from the dialogue that's dated, like it's still, there's so much dialogue in there that is just so good, so beautiful, so deep, so emotional. And just, God, it's just such... I love that game. Like, I'm just I don't care if I'm so late on this. You can call me a hipster Final Fantasy VII fan, but yeah, I finally played that game. Absolutely loved it. So invested in it. I just devoted so much time to that. I'm like, I threw away everything I was doing just when I wasn't at work. Everything was just going to making this game. But I think it was during like winter break or maybe even summertime when I played that, so it wasn't a huge like deal. But yeah, like I couldn't put that down. I wanted to see where this is going to go, and I'm just so excited to see what the rest of this happens, what the other two parts actually of this trilogy are going to do. God, I'm so excited for more. I can't wait.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And I don't care when you came into it. I'm much older, so I grew up with the other one, man. And I did really enjoy the remake. And then when we got to the end, I'm like, this is only half a game. I mean, they got so much in there, and I'm sure it's very hard to remake that masterpiece of a game. But
yeah,
I'm like, this is only half a game. I'm being selfish. I can't wait for the other half, man. Which I think might be on a whole new system. That's a whole nother story, man. I can't wait. I did want to ask you this one. I see that the one-winged dragon you pull from Final Fantasy VII. But I see you pull from some other places, man. Where else do you pull from? What influences you, like in movies or pop culture? I see a little Joker in there. I see a little Final Fantasy VII. Where else do you pull from?
Well, obviously the cackle that I always do, the whole Yeah, I'm definitely channeling a lot of specifically Mark Hamill's Joker,
Oh,
just
my
because
favorite.
I will die in this clip. That is the absolute best Joker ever. But I'm also I'm also thinking of like Chucky from Child's Play.
Ooh.
Like sometimes unintentionally, I just kind of mimic that laugh, and also just like more obscure one. Like when I was in Disney, I was really going for trying to imitate Jafar's laugh. It just might not come off as like that, just because like God, it's only once, but that's just such a damn chilling laugh. So it's always coming from a couple of places. But aside from that, I also love Full Metal Alchemist. If anyone ever wonders where this whole clap came from, that is the that is the alchemy pose. That is what they always go to. Just absolutely love that. I named my move the equivalent exchange, which is a phenomenon in the game or the anime. That big DDT that I'm always trying to break out. That's one. Just in general, I'm always trying to like break certain elements of anime. When I'm working a face, I'm always thinking of like Goku or Deku or Edward Elric. I'm always thinking of characters like that. When I'm playing a bad guy, I'm trying to take from a couple of other places. Like I'm always thinking like Bakugo, who's just always having these crazy outbursts out of nowhere. Just like, dude, nerd! Like, I'm always trying to like think of stuff like that. And but I'm also thinking of like stuff that kind of like humorous, that's kind of to me, because I know one way or another people are always going to laugh at this, so I gotta play into that humor. I gotta like get people going. So I'm always thinking of characters like Wushu from Mulan. I'm always thinking of
Wow.
like just videos I find on the internet. I'm a big fan of Smosh, and I'm always just like trying to tap into that humor, or the Angry Video Game Nerd, and just characters like that. And so yeah, I'm always trying to take it from places like just stuff that naturally just like comes to me as a laugh. And obviously, you look at my gear. You saw my recent gear. I based that off of Tifa Lockhart. Got the gloves. Got the color palette. Got my kick pads. That's modeled after her arm wear. Just so I'm always like trying to channel something and just share my love of so much culture and so much pop culture stuff. Things that I just adore with the public. I always want that to shine. And but above all, like I do usually just like when you see me in the ring, it's always just I'm trying to tap into something that's me. Like I'm not that far off from how I am in the ring. I can really be that annoying. I can really be that loud. I can really just ad lib something like that. When you see me like as a good guy, like I'm always just like you should just see me like during training at TCTs when we do these cardio days. Like I just keep when we do these crazy cardio drills, I just have to keep convincing myself, like, come on, come on, come on. You just gotta convince yourself you like this type of stuff. You gotta convince yourself you like the pain, and you just gotta like always have that never say die attitude. That's always what I'm going for. It's just who I am naturally, and obviously influenced from a lot of places. But above all, the person you see in the ring, that's just me. Me turned up to 11.
That's a great answer. I pop Jafar, man. Aladdin's one of my all-time favorite Disney movies. A deep
Yeah,
cut
it's a great
on
movie.
Mushu from Milan. Great answers on that. I was not expecting that. Awesome. Obviously, you're a fan of professional wrestling. Spoiler alert. We all are. Don't tell me that you're not, man. Because I've seen a lot. Even this room in here, we got so much wrestling stuff in here, man. I'm seeing a lot of Undertaker. I think I'm seeing some Stone Cold. Who influenced you? Who were the guys that not necessarily that you pulled from, but who were your guys or girls that you really loved watching?
Well, just my first introduction to wrestling was through the SmackDown versus Raw video game. Yeah, I went over to a friend's house. They had it. I didn't know anything about wrestling at the time. They just threw that on. It's like, let's play this, and just scrolling through random characters, and I just happened to pick the Undertaker, and I saw that entrance with those PS2. That honestly still kind of holds out, those PS2 graphics, but I'm getting ahead of myself. And I saw that
Good
entrance for
games.
the first time through the video game. I saw that slow walk and the way he rolled his eyes to the back of his head. I'm like, this guy's cool. This guy's cool. And I didn't even know like this was based on a real product. I didn't realize like this was actually wrestling. I guess I was just too caught up in video games. I thought this was something that was just made up. And then just one night in June, my brother just comes upstairs and tells me, "Hey, there's a wrestling show on UPN or whatever, because this on Thursday night." And I just flipped to that channel, and just so happened the Undertaker was main eventing the show that night against JBL, and
Meant to
I
be.
saw him in person, and my mind was just blown, and I immediately connected to him. And sure enough, I'm checking out SmackDown every week, and then I discover Monday Night Raw, and I see John Cena, and just growing up in that era, like I was 8 years old. This is during his first WWE Championship reign, '05. So if you were a kid, chances are you absolutely loved John Cena. I loved John Cena. Just I always looked up to him. I always just like admired that never say die attitude, that never give up. He was just so cool. He had the hat, he had the jorts, he was just so amazing to watch in the ring, so great to hear on the microphone, especially, and just absolutely loved him. And over time, I discovered more guys like Rey Mysterio. I'm always doing the 619 in the ring. When I was doing Jose Salvador, I was always channeling a lot of him. In recent years, I've realized more and more in recent years how much I really love watching Eddie Guerrero. Just from an in-ring perspective, from a character perspective, just Eddie Guerrero was as solid as it gets. So, and just, yeah, like Eddie's always been such a big influential part of my developing sense of humor and just like my love of wrestling. And so those are the big ones. Shawn Michaels is another one. Triple H. Just I grew up when DX was just reformed, and they just always made me laugh. I always felt like I got in so much trouble with my parents for always just quoting stuff they said, and probably in school for I think everyone got caught in school for doing the suck it.
Yeah, that was a big thing. People were getting in trouble. Yeah.
So yeah, that was definitely my introduction to a lot more raunchy stuff through DX, and there's always a couple more. I love watching Chris Jericho. I love Randy Orton. I love Kenny Omega. I cannot say enough good things about. Just goddamn, his entrance at Wrestle Kingdom this year was just so goddamn cool. That made me mark out. So and also just like there's plenty more. I also admire a lot of women in wrestling. Like I always loved AJ Lee. I had such a huge crush on AJ Lee. I'll admit that. Paige, I absolutely loved. Becky Lynch, in all honesty, she's probably my favorite person to watch right now. She is one of those people that could really do no wrong. I can't praise her enough. But I also love Bailey and Sasha Banks / Money Banks. I was in Brooklyn when they had that incredible matchup. Still probably my favorite match I've ever seen live. Just the energy from the crowd, the moment itself, the match, just God, that was just so goddamn perfect. And in the last couple of years, ever since like I first saw him, like the one person honestly I think that's had probably the most influence, the one person who really told me I can do this was Brian Danielson. First time I saw him was in NXT when he was under the Miz's wing. I saw that rise to stardom in WWE. I was always known in school as the guy who did the yes chant at every occasion, to a point where at my high school graduation, I went on stage and the entire auditorium started doing it. I'm not even making that
That's
up.
awesome, man. Wow, what a moment.
Yeah, and just Brian Danielson's just someone I always love watching him. Even if I can't catch like AEW live, I'm going to DVR it. If Daniel Bryan's on the show, if Brian Danielson's on the show, I'm going straight to that. If I can only watch one match, I'm going to watch the Brian Danielson match. I've never seen a bad match from that guy. Can't say enough good things about him. He's definitely always been one of my heroes. And probably, if I ever get to a point, if I somehow miraculously, by some miracle, get to wrestle him, I can retire happy after that.
Dude, you never know. And that being said, that leads perfectly into my last question, man. What are your goals moving forward, man? You could be very, very politically correct, say, hey, I just want the contract, but it doesn't have to be a certain company or anything like that, man. But it's so cool to see, most people, they want the contract, they want the dream, but I've heard other people say, hey, I just want to travel. Hey, I want to open a school. It's so cool to hear what everyone wants, man. What are your goals? Chris, is it like the PWI 500s? Is it that AEW Dark? And speaking to what you were talking about, I think Brian Danielson went on record saying he wants to work some more AEW Dark. Obviously, he's in a big storyline right now, but never say never, man. We've seen a lot of our buddies on AEW Dark and get those opportunities. It could be you versus Brian Danielson someday, even this year, man. What are the goals?
I mean, I would love that. Like I said, if I ever get that match, I feel like that's where my career would peak. I feel like I could just retire right then and there. But with that said, though, I don't have any like long-term set goals right now. I've reached a point now where I just want to enjoy being a wrestler. I'm not raising the bar for anything. I just want to have fun. I don't want to reach this point again, because this had happened in my life around my 5-year mark, when I felt like my passion for this was just being drained because I was in such a nasty, toxic environment. Most of my friends have moved on to better stuff, and just like all these like people that I'm not really connecting with, I should say. And just like I felt like my career wasn't progressing. I felt like because I was just so hell bent on being in one specific place, which has always just been being signed by the WWE. That's just always been my dream. But now, like last year when The Undertaker was inducted into the Hall of Fame, he said this was one of his signature moves, to never be content. And I very much believe that. If I ever reach a point where I'm content, then I feel like that should be the point where I call it quits. But I don't want to get to that point yet. I don't know if I will be doing this like in another 12 years from now. I don't know if something else will come along, because I do have other aspirations. I'm currently writing a book. I am looking to get into more acting, and I do have a full-time job now, which is doing some great wonders for me. So I'm in a position now where whatever happens just kind of happens, because I'm settling more and more into life, and reality is more starting to kick in. But if it does happen, if I do get like some big opportunity, if I could work for AEW, if I could work for WWE, if I could work for Impact, if I can go to Japan, if I could do it in the United Kingdom, if I could do any of that, that would be great. But I'm not aiming for that, at least for now. I just want to have fun. This has been the one thing I've loved ever since I was 8 years old. It's been the one thing that I never outgrew, even when I outgrew other stuff and rediscovered stuff. Wrestling was never one of them. I was the kind of kid that always got bullied for loving wrestling as much as I did, but I knew professional wrestling was just it for me. This is my life. Long after I'm retired, this is still going to be my life. I'm still going to check into it. I'm still going to follow wrestling. I'm still going to support the indies. I am going to just never lose that connection to my passion and to my younger self, that kid that I made a promise to, that someday I'm going to be a great professional wrestler. So it's an open book right now. I don't know where I go from here, but I just want to enjoy the ride.
Wow, very inspirational. Very well said. Chris, thank you so much for making the time. This is long overdue. I've been wanting to get you on, man. And hey, maybe Saturday you'll be walking out with that Dark Arts Championship. Guys, again, live on IWTV, my own worst enemy, Pro Wrestling Magic, 3 p.m. doors, bell time, 4 o'clock. Tune in as Chris Ryan, the One Wing Dragon, takes on Steve Off for the Dark Arts Championship. Mr. Ryan, thank you for opening up for a few minutes of your time. Continued success moving forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much.
Anytime, man. And good luck on Saturday. We'll see what happens. And guys, like we always say here on the BCP, everyone stay safe, stay positive, take care of each other. We're out. Peace.